So there is going to be a huge amount of thrust in this area, and I think solutions like the ones that Rajiv touched upon are going to be fundamental to the quality of experience that ultimately gets delivered to the consumer. Quality, accuracy, reliability of what is finally being delivered by way of that location service. So that brings us pretty much to the end of the speakers except mine, and I'm beginning to wonder actually if realizing broadband vision on empty stomachs is a good idea. So if you have the appetite for it, I have a presentation, but I was just wanting to know if you're really interested, then I could fire it up quickly. Yeah. So we'll make it very quick. I know it can be a torture to actually go through presentations, and so I'll make this very, very quick so that we have time to talk to each other and basically ask questions from one another and try and make sense of this whole topic. Okay, so let's get started straight away. I think my presentation is structured around three broad topics. One is, of course, the role of, give me just 1 second, how do you scroll these slides page down? Okay. So three broad areas is what we will split this discussion into. One is broadband drivers. Why this whole noise about broadband? What is it that is fundamentally changing in the way the world is communicating today? So let's try and look at that from a global perspective, and we have the benefit of having that perspective because we work across multiple markets around the world. So I'll try and bring that into a very simple format so that we understand, what's this sudden noise about broadband. Second is, what impact does all of this have on technologies of tomorrow? Because ultimately we're here to study, technologies and business together. So let's see, will the networks of tomorrow be able to sustain this broadband revolution, and what's being done about that? And finally, what, in our view, would it take to actually realize our broadband vision? So, is it just about a simple recipe, or is there more to it for a country to one day stand up and say that, yes, we have realized our broadband vision? So when you sit back and think about broadband, I think my job has become simpler because a lot of it has been talked, but we'll quickly, use this as an opportunity to summarize. The broadband policy of this nation, drafted in 2004, which I think in itself should be due for revision, talked about a target of 20 million subscribers with a throughput, a user experience of 256 kbps on all the time. In simple terms, that's what it was. And then, when I sit back and think, we wonder whether is a mere statistic a vision? That's the question we need to perhaps start asking ourselves as a country. Just saying that we want to get to 20 million subscribers by 2010, is that a vision? Or is that just a mere statistic? Or is it really about using broadband in a manner that it improves the quality of lives? Is it about using broadband in a manner that it opens up new sources of livelihood for people who don't have enough to make two ends meet today? Can broadband make a difference for those guys? Is it about bridging the haves and the have-nots? So forget about the technological aspects. How do we make a difference with broadband in our context as a nation? I think that would be perhaps a more concrete vision in terms of what we want to achieve with broadband, rather than just say we want to get to 20 million subscribers by XX year, which by the way itself seems to be a challenge given the amount of time we have lost over the last few years. So enabling national competitiveness, can broadband become a key differentiator in the way people deal with us? We have this whole revolution about IT-enabled services. We have the benefit of language, we have the benefit of being a youthful country. Now can broadband become an added stimulus, an added competitive edge to that value proposition? Is it therefore about leading from the front, or is it always going to be a case of catching up from behind? Can India stand up one day and say that, yes, this is our forte, let the world follow us? I think that's the kind of mindset that we will have to start bringing in at your levels today while you study these technologies in campus. And finally, is it about making broadband as the growth engine for this economy versus just treating it as a technology on chapter 5 or chapter 6 and so on and so forth of your books? So basically, this was touched upon as well. It is proven beyond doubt that broadband is a key driver for economic growth. The countries that you see on the left of this chart are basically countries with high per capita GDP. And typically what you see is a high correlation between countries with high per capita GDP and broadband penetration. So when you look at this chart, very simply, those countries are typically characterized with a broadband penetration level of anywhere between 25 to 35%. So that's the levels of penetration they have. The graph on the right is the graph that belongs to us. So we fall right there in that bracket of countries, which is basically countries with low per capita GDP today, and characterized once again with very, very slim broadband penetration levels. So a huge opportunity for us to actually make that migration from being where we are to being where some of the developed world has got to over the last several decades. So let's come to looking at few fundamental game changers, as I call them. What's changing in the way life is moving today? What is it that is suddenly bringing about this whole debate about, or this whole discussion, this whole passion around broadband? First, I think, is video everywhere and on every screen. If you come to think about it, whether you're at home, at your office, or at, or just commuting to office, the role of video is critical at each stage of your life. When you're sitting at home, in the manner in which you get entertained, for example, it's video predominantly that entertains you, whether it's a set-top box or it's digital TV or whatever it may be. When you look at yourselves at work, once again, video plays a huge role in the manner in which you execute your responsibilities at work. And finally, when you commute, so many of you put up your hands on things like Facebook and Twitter and all of those social networking phenomena, which were unheard of maybe 5 years ago. So all of this revolution in the way our patterns of life are evolving put a huge emphasis on video becoming center stage in the manner in which we communicate and exchange information with one another. So basically, when we look at video communications today, it's no longer the domain of one screen, your television. It is actually today a three-screen phenomena. So it's the television, it's your computer, and now it's your handset in your hand. All of these three screens are driven by video, and that's an important game changer that is happening and driving broadband worldwide. Second is, I think, obvious. When this begins to happen and video content starts getting more and more heavy with high definition content, then what you need as a corollary of that is bandwidth and more bandwidth. Because users now want to be able to access this content from wherever they are at any time. So what that means for technology companies and service providers is basically making that bandwidth available on demand. So that becomes the second big driver for broadband. Third is making all content mobile. So no longer is a user satisfied with getting his content only in place A or place B and nothing anywhere else. You want to be able to carry your experience with you. You want to be able to carry it across all kinds of environments, be it home, office, whatever else. You want that experience to be carried seamlessly. And you as a user will not, care less about whether that experience is being delivered on 3G or WiMAX or 4G. All that you want is continuity of experience and good experience. So that's another big driver for broadband as we see it today. Next is about accelerating personal media experiences. The whole story today is evolving around personalization. You want to see things the way you want to see them, not the way the service provider wants you to see them. So the manner in which you capture and share content is very personalized, and that is again a big game changer in the context of broadband. So I think these are a few of those key drivers today which are defining the broadband networks and services that we will live in tomorrow. Just as a quick proof point to what we were saying, this is an actual study which was done on the millennials, which is pretty much the age group in this room, people from the age group of 16 to 27. And the following questions were asked of them. The first one was the option to shift TV programs from your set-top box onto your mobile handset. And as many as 81% of them said, yes, we'd love to do that. We'd like to have that capability. Watching movies while traveling. For many of us that sounds like a joke, but there was enough and more who said, well, we're more than willing to have that kind of a capability available on our handsets. Watching 15-minute mobile versions of a 30-minute TV program, again a high response. and the phenomena to the right that we've already touched upon, the evolution of Facebook and Twitter and YouTube and so on and so forth, just drives home the point that the generation of tomorrow is going to be driven by video. And therefore, we better start preparing with that reality in mind in terms of the networks we build and the services we deliver. When you look at this great man on your picture, what is the first thing that comes to mind? Of course, he's Thomas Edison. I would expect we know that. And the first thing that comes to mind is the electric bulb, the man who invented electricity. But how many of us actually also know that he is the man who didn't do just that? He actually invented the distribution networks that deliver electricity to that bulb. How many of us really care about that aspect of his invention? We don't really care about, how electricity gets delivered to this bulb in this room. All we care about is the light it gives us when we want it, right? It's exactly the same with broadband. Users don't care about what technology is actually making that broadband connection available to them. All that they care is, when I want it, I've got it. So it's about, making or thinking of broadband as the electricity of the 21st century. It's about all-pervasive availability of broadband from any device, in any environment, at any time. So what does all of this mean to the networks of tomorrow? I'm just taking a small shift to technology because I thought it's relevant for the audience here. First, of course, is that networks of tomorrow will need to be faster and more responsive in terms of what they deliver to the end user, because he wants instantaneous connectivity and experience. So broadband experience anywhere. What that means from a technologist's point of view, from a service provider's point of view, is that he will have to start looking at his networks in a manner that they ultimately land up delivering lower cost per bit, ultimately make it easier to add capacity far more flexibly than conventional networks have so far been, and of course networks that are built on global standards. That's hugely important because now you're talking about a completely seamless world of communications where users travel from one end of the globe to the other, and the only common thread which combines all of these networks is global standards. So when you roam, you seamlessly roam across networks, across technologies, across national borders. The second benefit global standards gives, of course, is economies of scale, which again is very, very pertinent for a country like India, which is driven on cost and price. So when we look at technologies for tomorrow, our belief is that two technologies amongst the stack that we are all familiar with will play an increasingly important role going forward in delivering broadband on wireless access. And those two technologies are WiMAX and LTE. So if you pay your attention to the left of this slide, we are at this point, somewhere in 2010 today, where bulk of the investments of operators worldwide, by the way, this is a chart which actually shows the total capital spend by operators worldwide on their networks. Excuse me. So if you look at this, operators basically spend anywhere between $70 to $80 billion annually on their networks worldwide. The mix of this spend is largely skewed towards the technologies as we know them today: GSM, CDMA, 3G. Going forward, 2010 to 2015, this mix is going to significantly change in our view to as much as 50% on these technologies which are today on the anvil of becoming, the big technologies of tomorrow, which is WiMAX and LTE, or long-term evolution as it's called. The interesting part about these technologies is that they're built on very common fundamentals, which means that A, they're all IP-based technologies, which is flat architectures, lower cost, and so on and so forth. The air interface of these technologies is OFDM, orthogonal frequency division multiplexing, light infrastructure design so that you have a lower cost of ownership and operations. Advanced antenna technologies playing a huge role in the broadband networks of tomorrow. So you're talking about smart antennas, you're talking about beamforming, you're talking about multiple input, multiple output of MIMO, etc., etc. So a lot of emphasis is being paid today to these areas of technology as we build networks for tomorrow. And finally, of course, networks that deliver services with least latency and the highest spectral efficiency for all the points that were touched upon during Sriram and the rest of the team's presentation on the value of spectrum in this country today. So we'll stop at technology there. Two quick slides, and I'll just breeze past these. The point here being really that, all of this, all of these new technologies is not PowerPoint anymore. They are reality. So just as Motorola is, there are several companies that are actually playing a key role in commercializing these technologies across the world today. Whether you talk about WiMAX or you talk about LTE. In fact, WiMAX started to get commercial in the year 2007 with countries like Pakistan, right in our neighborhood, taking the initiative to roll out this technology as a key broadband enabler in their nation, and has been progressing successfully ever since. Likewise with LTE, 2009 has been a great year for firming up these standards and beginning to start building products. 2010 will actually start to see more and more operators try these networks out in real life environments. And the kind of momentum that we are beginning to see build up around these technologies is phenomenal already. So let's come to the last couple of slides of my presentation now, which is okay, so all of this is fine, but what does it therefore take for us to say that yes, this is what it will mean to realize our broadband vision? And I can think of this more like a symphony, more like an orchestra rather than a single bullet or a single golden bullet, if you may. So there are several stakeholders who've got to each play their role for this story to become a success. And it obviously begins with the government and the authorities that write the policies and the rules of the game for making this to happen. And Sriram touched upon that at length already. The enabling business case, I think, is an outcome of demand of what users expect and the enablement that business receives from the people that write the rules of the game. So that basically means if you have a strong business case and if you have the right economic environment to support it, then obviously the investment climate is going to be supportive as well. People will be willing to stand up and say that yes, we are willing to pledge money into this technology, into building broadband networks in this nation, because there is a natural fit in terms of delivering real services to end consumers and at the same time meeting business objectives that all companies are meant to serve. The role of technology is critical, and so is the role of the service provider, because that's where the real moment of truth takes place between the end consumer and all of this world of technology. He's the bridge. The service provider knows best what users expect, how it has to be packaged, what kind of tariffs, what kind of bundling, etc., etc. So that's the key link between the consumer and all the rest that happens to the left. And finally, consumer adoption needs to take place. So when all this happens in unison, that's where I think this broadband revolution begins to start happening. And then the numbers become a byproduct of the whole process. So 20 million today and probably 40, 50, 100 million tomorrow will happen if we get our act right around these areas. So when you look at it in the context of this value chain that I just touched upon, the role of government, harmonized policy making. We're talking about converged networks, everything converging onto one screen and so on and so forth. But our mindsets are still driven by silos. We still have the telecoms thought process separate from broadcasting, separate from IT, etc., etc. That integration needs to start happening in the way we think about policies that will drive the next decade networks and services. A speedy and transparent decision making, conducive regulatory environment, spectrum allocation and roadmap. For any wireless technology, spectrum is the bloodline of that whole offering. If you don't have spectrum, you can do nothing, because wireless needs spectrum. Incentives that reward performance, clearly that needs to start happening when you deal with scarce resources, creating an investment-friendly climate and good governance. The business case, I think we touched upon it already. When the first quadrant happens well, the business case, assuming that there is demand, which in our country we are convinced there is enough and more of, will begin to start making sense. And that's where the role of technology and service delivery also comes in. So what kind of technology should we choose? Are they either or decisions, or are they complementary decisions? Is it necessary that we must choose only one, or could we fit technologies across different market segments? And that was again touched upon in the previous presentations, that you could actually mix and match technology in a very, very wise manner so as to get the best out of what technology has to offer today. Let's not forget that technology is just an enabler. It's not an end in itself. Ultimately, its role is to serve customers, and as long as that is done, that's it with technology. The user doesn't care about anything beyond that. So we can debate about it for days together, but ultimately that's the truth. And finally, the consumer. Because why are we doing all of this? We are doing all of this to serve this consumer. So what is it that makes the consumer interested in these services? Clearly, in simplistic terms, affordability of service. We know what affordability can do. We've seen the experience on mobile services in our country itself. Literacy and simplicity of use, they go hand in hand. You don't want it to be very complex. You want it to be simple to use so that you can have more and more people adopting it, right? It needs to have some utility in that person's life. It may be simple to use, it may be affordable, but if I don't find a need for it, probably I won't adopt it. So you have to basically be able to deliver services that he can relate to. If it makes an economic impact on him, if it makes the health services that he gets, the education services that he gets better and more easily available, chances are that he will put his hand up to adopt it. And obviously there has to be something in it for each market segment. So the youth have different expectations, the rural segments have different expectations, and therefore this technology or this offering needs to be all-encompassing in that sense. You can't let it become just the privilege of a few. Remember, we said broadband needs to be seen as the electricity of the 21st century. And therefore it needs to be available and equally available to everyone. So that brings me to the last slide of what I had put together for this session. So when we say that we have realized our broadband vision, I think the way I would like to see this is not in the context of a number or just a sheer statistic, but the day we can prove to the world that yes, through broadband, we have actually delivered higher GDP growth in this nation. We have eradicated the digital divide substantially. We have started to connect the unconnected, and we have started to deliver, much more better quality of governance in a transparent and efficient manner. That's the first turning point for a nation to be able to then stand up and face the world and say that, what, we've made broadband make a difference in our nation. Apart from which, there is the other needs to be fulfilled. There are other aspirations in the way we want to entertain, in the way we want to connect, share, etc., be it commerce, be it just information access, or whatever else. Those services will certainly be the icing on the cake to really put us at par with the rest, and also then claim that broadband we've joined the club of countries, let us say, that is broadband rich and truly uses broadband in an efficient and effective manner. That's it from me. Thank you.